Hi everyone, Charlotte, Joe and Sid here for our first community call of the year. It's so great to see you all coming into the call and joining us today. Sorry for starting a little bit late. Sid was just rifling through his clothes to get his maple hat. And here we are. Thank you for joining us. We've moved these to quarterly, so sorry to keep you waiting so long. But we've got lots of updates today. We'll do a little bit of a recap of last year, seeing as it's the first time we're seeing you. But then we'll spend much of the session just looking back on Q1, because we've been hard at work, but from both a product and a commercial perspective. And then we'll leave some time at the end for looking ahead to Q2 and plans that are already underway there, and leave some time for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. So I've allowed 45 minutes for this, and hopefully we'll be able to cover off everything in that time. But I guess take it away, Sid, over to you. Do you want to recap 2022?
Absolutely. Let's do it. So as we look back on 2022, it offered plenty of opportunities to learn, but there are also a number of wins for Maple along the way in what was a bit of a tumultuous year. So Maple became the largest under-collateralized lender by loans originated on-chain, which was a big milestone. As we reached the end of the year, we also launched Maple 2.0, which was definitely our largest engineering project to date, and which fixes a number of issues that have been encountered during the year, probably most notably withdrawals. So this removed front running and introduced pro rata withdrawals for liquidity providers. And then it also set everyone up to be on the same cycle when going through a withdrawal on the platform. We also proved the strength of our legal framework, which upheld the validity of a couple of on-chain loans that went through either a restructuring or a default. So a bit of a test there, but it showed that on-chain loans are definitely valid in the current legal system, which I think was a boon for the space overall. And then the team showed resilience throughout the year, and Maple was actually nominated as one of the best places to work by a network of customers and community members. So I think that was, all in all, challenging year, but definitely some highlights that are worth calling out. As we look through Q1, so the quarter that's just been, whilst activities at the end of the year definitely tempered the growth trajectory, the product and the commercial team have still been heads down over the past quarter. On the product front, the team was busy building features for lenders, and these included open term loans and also Maple Prime, or what we've also called active collateral management. On the commercial side, we welcomed Accrue to the platform, as well as supporting M11 Credit with their Oros negotiations and with a successful restructure, as well as their underwriting revamp and uplift. So there's 2 new pools as well slated for this quarter, which we'll briefly touch on during today's call. But let's get into some of the details. Joe, do you want to take us through a deep dive into the product?
Let's do it. All right. So Maple and Sid and I have been hard at work in building and bringing debt capital markets on chain and building out on-chain infrastructure. And so it's been over 2 years now that we've been building smart contract technology, and the big release and the big maturation of our technology was the release of Maple 2.0, which really started to bring a focus around and shifted us from an MVP style product into refining and optimizing our offering overall. And so across the teams, the objective for 2023 is to really leverage that big improvement in our technology and infrastructure and start to build a real infrastructure for capital markets to exist on chain, and through diversifying the number of lending opportunities that will be on the platform. So for our product roadmap for the first half of the year, it includes the introduction of open term loans. So all of the lending that's been done on Maple to date has been fixed term loans. And so this is a real revolution, and you would have seen it rolled out on Solana initially last year, and we're now bringing it to Ethereum. And so just to give a quick overview of what open term loans is that there's no maturity date on a loan that's created. And so the loan exists, borrowers continue to make payments on a monthly installment basis, but then the loan is able to be called by the delegate at any time, or the borrower is able to repay the loan at any time. And so it enables more flexibility for the borrowers, but also in high-risk scenarios enables more flexibility for delegates to manage their pool and be able to manage and match to withdrawal requests and liquidity needs. And so it's something that we saw on the Solana pool in the crash of last year, and something that we're bringing and will be used across the platform, not only in unsecured lending, but in a number of the other pools that we're rolling out, and we'll allude to later in the call. The other big one that's coming and that the team is currently building out is active collateral management. And so active collateral management will utilize open term loans and will enable borrowers to post collateral into a qualified custodian so that there's full surety on where that capital is sitting, and that both borrowers can have the security of knowing where their collateral is being posted, as well as lenders having full transparency. And so we're phrasing this as a CeFi killer. It's one of the big things that we saw last year was the lack of transparency that existed across CeFi. And so we're super excited about the benefits and the transparency that this will bring to the platform, leveraging all the benefits of Maple's technology and infrastructure for building and having the loan origination process on chain with the benefits of qualified custody. And so in terms of progress on those two, open term loans excitedly went to audit this week, and we'll be looking to release that in May. And then that will be shortly followed by this first active collateral management, or what we're terming internally Maple Prime offering coming. Other things that the team has been working on is that we have released our first version of the SDK and our API. And so this will start to enable custodians, institutions, other platforms to correct directly with Maple, enable them to deposit, withdraw, and initiate transactions, as well as receive data from the application. And so we think it's going to be a real extension of our infrastructure and enable Maple to be a real back end for institutional lending happening on chain. And then finally, some updates to the web application. So we're always trying to focus on optimizing lending operations, and so delegates can spend more time focusing on their underwriting processes and raising capital rather than the operations. And that's really what the technology that Maple provides is. And so we've now got borrower information that's displayed in the application, where people can have more transparency and information about those borrowers, so they can see who the parties are and start to have more detail when they're doing a review of the lending opportunities. And then we also released monthly interest statements. So we had a lot of feedback from lenders where they wanted to have more information, not just readily available to them with on-chain data that's in real time, but be able to look back historically. And so now they can download monthly interest statements and see and have a verifiable opportunity to see what that interest that they've accumulated over any given period of time is. We worked with a Big Four consultancy firm, as well as building out a whole back-end data infrastructure to facilitate this type of product. And so it will really stand the test of time for sophisticated investors and the reporting that they need. I think the other one that we've got there is the borrower information page, and maybe just a quick deep dive into that. And so now when you go to the information page, when you go to select the loans, you'll see that there's a new tab there called borrowers. And so you can see who are all of the borrowers that are in their pools, what's the total amount of capital they have borrowed, and a bit of a blurb and more information with links out to more detailed information on those borrowers. So it enables more of this self-auditability of the lending opportunities on Maple. Other highlights to call out from the first quarter is that we're thrilled again to get above 90%. I think we got 92% on our DeFi safety, which is becoming one of the more preeminent reviews of smart contract releases. And so it speaks to the quality of the Maple smart contract team and the quality of code and processes that we've implemented, whether that be audits, our internal review processes, and that how importantly we track and release the smart contracts to mainnet. Then we obviously released, so that review was all done over Maple 2.0 contracts, and so reviewing all the flexible, modular, open source technology that we've reviewed and released. Then there is the mobile UX, which was improved. So if you're going onto your app and checking your lending position, you can now do that in a much more pretty way, and it's been scaled down to be compatible with mobile. And then the front end team continues to work on and improve, along with our product designers, on introducing new features and introducing improvements to the UI all the time. And so as you come to the app, every few weeks you start to see releases, bug fixes, and new information and transparency and features coming to the platform.
Amazing. Thanks, Joe. That's a good recap of Q1 product. And I just want to shine a light on our automated onboarding process, which we've been collecting the data on it. And I just chatted to Martin, who's built it. And it takes just 2 minutes to onboard as a lender through our new automated process. So all of these little efficiencies add up to a really streamlined experience in lending and operating on Maple. So yeah, big quarter, lots of improvements and very big chunky features coming soon. But it wasn't just product that we've been working on this quarter. We've also been heads down from a commercial perspective. And I'm going to throw this over to Sid to talk us through what happened in Q1.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the commercial front, we had a new pool launched with Accrue, AQRU, which is the first pool to originate real-world asset loans on Maple. So I think that was a super exciting milestone. The pool, that pool covers tax receivable credit finance to small businesses. So it's tackling real-world problems faced by small businesses, and I think it's a huge milestone. We've seen steady growth on that pool, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. Maven 11 got back to lending to premier trading firms last week using their new enhanced approach. So updated credit framework, new version of their credit policy, hiring additional underwriters, and including more real-time monitoring of active loans with borrowers through software. Software like Credora and Arkham is another one that they've been evaluating and researching. We also have an announcement about the launch of our cash management pool. So this will bring loans on chain which are collateralized against underlying T-bills and with real-time reporting. So that's one of the exciting things we'll have coming over Q2. And then we will also have an announcement, which Joe briefly touched on, about Maple Prime, or active collateral management, which I think is going to be a huge thing because it effectively allows loans on chain on Maple to be collateralized cross-chain. But let's take a moment to put a spotlight on M11 Credit and on Intero Capital Solutions and that pool that's being done in partnership with Accrue. So if we just move on to the next slide. So in February, Accrue joined the platform to lend to Intero Capital, a company that's processed over $2 billion in loan receivables, with a niche in providing advanced payments to companies who are eligible for rebates from a tax credit program that was introduced by the IRS. So we'll take a moment to look at the work of the borrower, Intero Capital, who's the sole borrower in that pool. But it's important to note that the underlying loans here, so every loan that goes to Intero is collateralized with payment receivables, which were purchased off of small businesses, and where the underlying asset is a right to repayment from the IRS that's held in an escrow. So this stems from an important program, so the Employee Retention COVID-19 Tax Credit Program established by the IRS, which was intended to provide rebates and relief to companies who continued to pay employees during the pandemic shutdown. So what Intero does is they purchase these receivables from eligible firms, providing them with advanced payments for use in either new leases, inventory, or hiring or general OPEX. But it supplies pretty important working capital to these companies. Since the pool was launched in February, we've seen 8.7 million in advance payments provided there to Intero, and the pool has financed over 60 underlying payments to real-world businesses. So that's really exciting. It's a real breakthrough in DeFi. It's estimated that these receivables could be funded up to a huge 500 million a month. So there is a lot of capacity in this pool and in this lending strategy to grow. And I think real-world asset lending is going to be a huge trend that we're seeing commented on a lot this year. Now, the pool's open to accredited investors what we found is that they do like it for the non-correlated interest rates and the fact that it's secured by underlying tax credit receivables, a diverse pool of these. So it's not one that's backing the loans in the pool, it's dozens of them. And all payments ultimately go into an escrow account, which the pool could claim if there was any kind of adverse development or event of default with a loan. The pool so far has paid 9.7% interest rate to lenders, which is pretty attractive in today's environment. If you would like to learn more about the opportunity or to onboard as an accredited investor as a lender, you can simply head to the pool page on the Maple web app, and we'll post a link in the chat for that. Now we can probably move on to a bit of a discussion on Maven 11 credit. So we had a positive development with 100% repayment of the Oros loans, which were restructured and extended. So the negotiations post FTX continued late last year and into early this year, but Oros was able to successfully restructure the debt with their other lenders, bring on a new investor. So it was a great result there. The loans were initially impaired on the web app, which gave M11 credit the use of this new impairment feature introduced as part of V2, which meant that there was no uneven treatment of lenders in the pool. So anyone who remained could receive recoveries once the loans were unimpaired and that restructure was successfully completed. And anyone who therefore remained in the pool could receive full payment over the course of that extended period. So in this instance, it was Maple's flexible product that kind of supported the operations there. And then the Maple Foundation also supported on the legal developments there, supporting M11 credit on that restructure process. This also allowed a new and improved risk and underwriting approach to be developed at M11 credit over the course of this quarter. So they've taken new off-chain approaches to underwriting and risk monitoring, resulting in them returning to lending. And they're also at this stage in the process of hiring a new senior credit director to bring 5+ years experience to the firm, which we're pretty excited to support them with. And they've also just launched recently a new pool, which will lend to premier trading firms. So that pool's permissioned. So you have to pass onboarding and KYC. It's in USDC. It's lending to publicly listed firms and European-based trading firms. And all of the loans that come out of that pool will be assessed using their new framework. So I think that's really exciting to see the activity continue there, and we're excited to support them there. Now, as I saw someone comment in the chat, we'll provide an update on orthogonal and the liquidation process being helmed by Kroll there. If we just skip to the next slide.
I don't think we put it on a slide, Sid. I think that takes us
no
to the
problem.
next. Yeah, maybe just voice over that one.
I'll just do the voiceover. So with orthogonal and Kroll, last year and over January, M11 and Maple successfully petitioned through a court process to have Kroll appointed as the liquidator over orthogonal trading. They have been collecting information and assets to ascertain the total recoveries there. But overall, what this means is that there was a proactive and aggressive push to commence the liquidation, and the court in that instance upheld the validity of the on-chain or of the lending agreements and the validity of an on-chain loan. And what we're trying to achieve there is a best outcome for lenders who are impacted by those defaults in the pool. Currently, the situation is that Kroll is providing updates on their progress with a view to collecting all of the assets and understanding the total balance. The big update that is being waited on is a confirmation from FTX's liquidator and estate to confirm orthogonal's holdings there. And the next milestone in this process will be a hearing that's scheduled for the 21st of April in the Australian Federal Court. So as we get more updates through from either us, so the Maple Foundation, or M11 Credit, those will be shared with lenders in the community. But these processes, it is worth noting, do take time as they work their way through kind of the TradFi legal system there. All right, Charlotte, over to you on the commercial, other commercial updates.
Other commercial, yeah. I can just wrap up. But just on the orthogonal and crawl updates, I do try to keep everyone up to date in Discord and in Telegram. And as we have information, we really do share it. So we'll work on preparing an update in and around the 21st of April based off of that hearing. And I'll be sure to share that with everyone in the channels. Wrapping up this commercial section from Q1, we were super pleased to have been voted into second place by readers of Private Debt Investor magazine, which is a brilliant publication for all things private credit and private debt. It's fantastic. And we were the only blockchain built lender or technology provider on that list. So we were really quite pleased to have been recognized by their readership, which is basically people in traditional finance. So that was a very proud moment last month. And thank you if you guys voted for that. It's appreciated. And then Sid, Quinn, and myself have been speaking to Forbes and CNBC. Quinn was on CoinDesk TV talking about life post Silvergate, which was a really interesting watch. And I'll be sure to share those links as well. And we just consistently are attending events, whether those virtual or in real life. I was lucky enough to be invited back to a London-based event to talk all things blockchain and AI in lending. Sid's been at Hack Summit, and we are excited this month actually, to be heading over to Consensus. So yeah, we're keeping busy and we're still building relationships and sharing the good word about Maple at any opportunity. And thank you everyone for consistently promoting and celebrating us as well. We really do appreciate it. All right, what's next? So coming up in Q2. So I think actually we've probably provided a pretty good overview of what is coming in Q2 in regards to product, whether that be open term loans, the SDK. We'll also be integrating different ways to be collecting customer feedback into the app. We get a lot of feedback on Telegram and Discord and in conversations, but looking to incorporate that into the app as well, which is exciting. New pools coming soon, but I'll hand the mic over to Sid to talk about that. We'll be at Consensus. Sid will be speaking on a panel about DeFi versus CeFi. And we will also be at Digi Asset Week in London in May with M11 Credit. And I think these guys are in the call. So if you want to meet up with us or M11, we'll be in London at the end of May for Digi Asset Week. And then from an operations perspective, we're not really alluded to anything just yet, but these are projects that we're kicking off internally. So the DAO development, so what Maple from a DAO perspective is beginning to evolve into. So that's a really exciting project. And we're also spending a lot of time building out our internal data center as well. And that's the data center that powers monthly interest statements and much more. So I'm really excited to be progressing those projects through in the background as well. I don't usually do so much talking, so I'm going to have to throw back to you, Sid, to talk a little bit about the new pool coming soon, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. So I briefly alluded to it, but this quarter we'll be excited to launch the cash management pool. So I think this one is, take stock of the fact that in the DeFi space at the moment, people are looking to off-chain yields. So there was definitely a rise in US Treasury yields, and they've gone kind of risk off and looking for things that have higher liquidity. So what stands out about this pool? It's on-chain loans. So it's a deposit into the pool, which will fund a loan to an SPV. The SPV is going to post as collateral T-bills. So this is interesting in that it's one of the first pools on chain that has underlying T-bills as collateral. There'll be daily liquidity. We'll be providing real-time reporting on the web app page itself of every T-bill that's in there, the weighted average time to maturity. And I think this is really necessary as we see decreasing trust in banking facilities and banking providers from firms in the space. So I think we've seen that it's become harder and harder to get access to basic banking facilities. And increasingly, you have to worry about things like, are you above or below the FDIC deposit insurance cap. And so what we're trying to provide here is just a simple product so that people who have their funds on chain, so DAOs, startup treasuries, can deposit, not have to worry about it. They can see the performance of the loans, see the underlying T-bills backing it. And so it just provides a neat on-chain solution where their stakeholders always know where the funds are because they'll have the LP token in their wallet as well. So really excited about that. I think we'll have more announcements to come on it over the course of this month.
Really exciting.
And it's got a kick-ass icon.
It's going to do what? Sorry, Sid.
It's got a kick-ass icon.
Yeah. There's many variations of those, but I chose the most orange one. All right, that brings us to the end, everybody. And there's no questions in the chat. So I'll give it a couple of minutes if you do have any questions.
Cosmo not on this call?
Pardon?
Is Cosmo not on this call?
No, Cosmo was on. I saw him.
I know. I'm just provoking a question.
Hey-yo, Cosmo. Cosmo usually, if you're new here, Cosmo usually has lots of questions. Harry's posted a question. Sid, what about AUD treasury bills or yen?
It's a good question, actually. I think that could evolve. The difficulty with AUD T-bills at the moment would just be basis. So there isn't a live, easily available AUD stablecoin just yet. NAB and ANZ, I both believe, were looking at launching them, and NAB had the great successful milestone last month of conducting a transaction on chain in it. So if we could get access to those stablecoins, then we could offer an AUD government bond style pool, which I think would be pretty interesting for people. I do expect you'll start to see more of those other currencies over the next 12 months.
All right, we've got a question from Chris. Hi, Chris. Any plans or roadmap for new MPL tokenomics and utility? Yeah, are we working on those plans? And
there is.
Yeah.
There is. And so I think what we will do is we will have a formal governance write-up and a vote as we get into the middle of the year on this, in which token holders can participate. Probably deserves a more expanded forum for discussion. So more details to come.
Yeah, and that's definitely part of the DAO development piece that I was talking about earlier. But very exciting. Are we hiring in Korea at this moment in time, Sid? We've got people keen to join Maple as Korea and Asia starts popping off.
We might have to pay a visit at Korean Blockchain Week. So we actually, interestingly enough, did once have a developer based in Korea very early on in Maple's history. So Korea has a pretty healthy, very, very, very early days. Korea has a very healthy blockchain community. So I think we'd love to check it out during Korean Blockchain Week.
Great. Oh, it looks
interesting offer, ZV. Might have to take you up on it.
Yeah, definitely. I think Korea Blockchain Week's first week of September. So we'll try and be over there and then head to Token 2049 as well in Singapore. Cosmo, good. I was worried there for a second. Which pools of capital are you finding the most interest in the new MPL pools? Is that different from last year's lenders? Which pools are getting the most interest, basically?
I think I actually think Cosmo's question was kind of asking which type of lender demographics are most interested. So I think it did change. So earlier on last year, I would say there was a lot of interest from yield aggregators. And so these could have included, the likes of blockchain.com. But what they were doing was they were aggregating a lot of capital themselves from various portions, and then they were looking at the use of these pools to kind of supplement other activities. I would say now what's happened is that it's shifted more towards on-chain treasuries, DAOs, high net worths, and also crypto-focused hedge funds. It's very much more a case of looking at on-chain capital rather than off-chain capital at this point in time. And I think over the course of the next 12 months, that will probably shift back a little bit more in favor of off-chain capital, just as the rails to get on-chain become easier, and as there becomes more acceptance of these on-chain forms of financial product, whether it's lending or something else.
There's one question before I get to the newest question, but when meetup in Australia, Sid? I
would like to get back to Australia over the course of this year. So if I can make it middle of the year, definitely a meetup in Sydney or Melbourne. Harry's question: what off-chain yield opportunities is Maple expanding to over the coming quarters? So we currently have in practice or in place the tax credit receivables. The next big one will be the cash management pool, which will be loans which are collateralized by T-bills. And then the other sectors that we're looking at the moment would be probably trade finance, invoice finance, and also reinsurance, which I think kind of give a bit of a skew of the spectrum of yield opportunities, but all still in the research phase. Are we looking at a deployment on Base from One? Yes. We're definitely interested in that. We have a good relationship with Coinbase, and we see it as an exciting strategic partnership that makes this type of product a little bit more accessible to people because they have access via that on-ramp. Z, you asked a question about Korea. Yes, so we did have a developer there earlier on, but we're going to be coming to Korean Blockchain Week. So interested to meet people in the Korean blockchain ecosystem. Updates on the Icebreaker finance pool. So they had a recent change in leadership, but I received a deck this morning about the planned strategy on both miners and then also looking at ETH validators. So hopefully more updates to come from them soon. Tax credit receivables from Cosmo. Is that a seasonal thing? No, it doesn't appear to be seasonal because it can be backdated to periods from 2021 and 2022, and so it's a program that has a sunset clause after 2025. But I would expect that you shouldn't see seasonality in there in the meantime. Cosmo, late April, but more announcements to come later. Christian, can we elaborate on Maple Prime? So that was what Joe mentioned as active collateral management. So how it differs from the current platform is that it still has the on-chain loans from Maple pools, which are controlled by smart contracts. But that on-chain loan can have collateral, which could be layer 1 BTC or some other layer 1 token, which is held at a qualified custodian. So not rehypothecated, not commingled by the custodian. So it's a better deal for a borrower. And then for lenders, it means that we don't have to only use wrapped assets as collateral. So we think it expands the universe on both the lender side and the borrower side, because now the on-chain loans to market makers will not solely be kind of under collateralized ones. And we have more liquid forms of collateral.
Any other naming conventions welcomed?
I like Maple Prime.
I like Maple Prime.
That was yeah. Alrighty, let's
is the best one, I think.
CeFi killer.
Well, I mean, it's the update that CeFi needs, right? So I think that's where it's got a huge application and can be used by many parties across the space.
Mm.
I don't know why you'd ever go back to a CeFi lender after that. Like if they said, well, what we do is we take your funds, we don't tell you where we're lending them or how they're performing. It's very hard to see that kind of business model enjoying a real resurgence.
All right.
All right.
Oh, not anymore.
No.
Thank you, everyone, for the great questions. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will keep the updates coming, and we hope to see you on the next community call.
Exactly that. We'll keep you updated in the meantime, and watch out for exciting updates coming soon. And thank you for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. See ya.